Jake kayaking right now.
Damn, kids always kayaking in the neighborhood, dude.
Southwest Idaho has been dealing with unsettled weather conditions, and when the atmosphere is primed the right way, warm, humid air at the surface colliding with cooler air pushing in from the upper levels, you get the kind of explosive thunderstorm development that happened here. These were not your typical afternoon pop-up storms that roll through, drop some rain, and move on. These were organized, intense, and they lingered through the overnight hours, which made everything worse. When storms hit during the day, people are awake. They can see what is happening, they can move their cars, they can check the sump pumps, they can keep an eye on rising water. But when the worst of it happens at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, families are asleep. Drainage systems get overwhelmed before anyone even realizes there is a problem. By the time people wake up and look outside, the water is already in the garage, already creeping under the door, already in the basement. That is exactly what happened across southwest Idaho last night, and the damage is significant. Let's talk about Meridian first, because what residents there dealt with overnight was genuinely striking. Meridian neighborhoods endured some of the most visible hail accumulation from this entire storm system, and we are not talking about a light dusting of small pellets here. We are talking about icy drifts, actual accumulation on lawns, on sidewalks, along the edges of driveways and roads, the kind of hail buildup that looks like a January snowstorm hit in the middle of the night. Residents who stepped outside this morning were met with a landscape that looked completely transformed. But the hail was only part of the story in Meridian. Floodwater spread through residential streets as the intense rainfall overwhelmed local drainage infrastructure. Streets that are normally dry and passable turned into moving water channels as runoff had nowhere to go fast enough. Gutters filled, drains backed up, and water began sheeting across pavement and into low-lying areas of neighborhoods throughout the city. And then there were the trees. Powerful wind gusts battered Meridian repeatedly through the overnight hours, and the combination of saturated soil and intense wind proved to be too much for several trees across the area. Some snapped partway up the trunk, others toppled entirely, root systems pulling free from ground that had been softened by the heavy rain. Downed trees mean blocked roads, potential damage to vehicles and structures, and downed power lines.
Street is flooded, and it's like lightning and thunder and hail, and it's like a little river going down a street.
Minnesota.
Oh my word, look at it. Oh my God! No, no way. I think their slides are along there.
That was like my car. Oh no!
Bro, there's no shot.
And it's not gonna stop. You realize?
All of which add layers of danger and complexity to an already difficult overnight situation. Meridian crews and residents are going to be dealing with cleanup for a while. The hail alone creates problems because as it melts, it contributes additional water to an already saturated environment. Drains that were already struggling get hit with another wave of water, and the flooding risk actually continues even after the rain stops. Moving west from Meridian, Nampa took a serious hit from this storm system as well, and the roadway flooding there was extensive, some of the worst in the region. Here's the thing about storm drain systems in any city. They are designed to handle a certain rate of rainfall, what engineers call the design storm. They can move water efficiently up to a point, but when rainfall rates exceed what the system was built for, the drains simply cannot keep up. Water piles up faster than it can be carried away, and that's when streets start flooding. That is exactly what happened in Nampa last night. The rainfall came in too fast, too intense, and the storm drain network fell behind quickly. Intersections began disappearing beneath murky water. And when streets flood with any kind of intensity, debris moves with the water. Leaves, branches, trash, sediment, and that debris settles into drainage channels and clogs them further. So now you have a system that is already overwhelmed, and it's getting progressively more blocked as the night goes on. City crews deployed pumps through the night to try to keep pace with the situation.
Our storm drain is full. Also, we wouldn't have done anyways because we came all wet.
Oh no, Colton's car is gonna float away. It's insane. So that could come off. What's she doing? Where's she going? Go surfing now.
Think about what that looks like. Workers out in the middle of a thunderstorm in the dark, setting up and running pumping equipment at flooded intersections while lightning is still flashing and rain is still coming down. These are the people working behind the scenes while most residents are trying to sleep, doing everything they can to keep water moving and protect neighborhoods from even worse flooding. By morning, many of those intersections were still recovering. Debris-clogged channels meant drainage was still sluggish even after the rain had eased, and standing water persisted in numerous areas across Nampa well into the morning hours. Boise is a large city, and with large cities, storm impacts are rarely uniform. Different parts of town have different elevation levels, different drainage infrastructure, different tree coverage, different development density, and all of that means that two neighborhoods just a few miles apart can experience the same storm in completely different ways. That is exactly what played out in Boise overnight. Some areas of the city came through the storm with minimal issues. A little rain, some wind, nothing serious. But other districts, particularly lower-lying neighborhoods and areas where drainage infrastructure is older or more limited, faced a very different situation. Several districts in Boise reported hail-covered streets, flooded basements, and hazardous travel conditions. Flooded basements are particularly painful for homeowners because that is where water heaters, furnaces, electrical panels, and stored belongings often live. Water getting into a basement is not just an inconvenience, it can mean thousands of dollars in damage, contaminated belongings, and in some cases, serious safety hazards if electrical equipment gets wet. Water pushed toward major corridors through the city as runoff moved through the drainage network and toward lower areas. And through all of this, lightning was a persistent factor. Repeated lightning strikes disrupted visibility for drivers navigating the city overnight. That combination of flooded roads, reduced visibility, and lightning in the area made driving through Boise genuinely dangerous for anyone who had to be out last night. The patchwork nature of the damage in Boise means that some residents are waking up this morning wondering what all the fuss is about, while their neighbors across town are dealing with flooded basements and damaged property. That contrast is one of the challenging things about major urban storm events. Caldwell experienced a combination of impacts that, while perhaps not as dramatic as some other communities, still left residents and city crews with significant work ahead of them. Overflowing storm drains were a primary issue in Caldwell, as they were in much of the region. Intense rainfall filled the drainage network quickly, and when that network hits capacity, water backs up and begins pooling in streets and low-lying areas. Standing water collected along neighborhood roads throughout the city and some areas, that standing water is slow to recede because the ground underneath is already fully saturated and cannot absorb any additional moisture. Caldwell also dealt with scattered power interruptions overnight. Lightning strikes and high winds are the two most common causes of power outages during thunderstorms, and Caldwell got both. Power going out overnight is disruptive and potentially dangerous for households with medical equipment, people who depend on refrigerated medications, or families with young children or elderly members who may be vulnerable to temperature changes if heating or cooling systems shut down. Damaged tree limbs were scattered across the city as well, adding debris to roadways that were already dealing with standing water and reduced visibility. Cleanup operations in Caldwell were actually underway before sunrise, crews getting out ahead of the morning commute to clear what they could and get roads back to passable condition as quickly as possible. Eagle is a community that sits in a position where storm drainage can be particularly challenging, and last night proved that point clearly. Heavy rain, gusty winds, and temporary flooding that submerged sections of roadway, that is the summary of what Eagle dealt with overnight. But let's unpack what submerged roadway sections actually means for a community. When water covers a road, drivers face a genuinely difficult decision. The water looks like it might be passable, maybe it's only a few inches deep, but moving floodwater can be deceptive. 6 inches of fast-moving water can knock a person down. A foot of water can move a small car. And road surfaces beneath floodwater can be damaged. Potholes, undermined pavement, debris, in ways that drivers cannot see until it is too late. In Eagle overnight, water rushed through intersections as the storm moved through. Smaller hailstones added to the mix, striking vehicles and outdoor property throughout the night. Hail damage to vehicles is one of those things that might not be immediately obvious, but can be costly. Small dents across hoods and roofs that add up quickly when you start getting repair estimates. The flooding in Eagle, while described as temporary in many areas, still required residents and crews to navigate carefully and respond to changing conditions through the overnight hours.